Okay, so you guys, what I like to really do is, generally when I give a presentation, I kind of do things where I try to, the things that I feel are most important, I try to get them in early. That's in case you got to go or whatever. But generally, I like to build and save it for the end or suspense or anything like that. So one thing that I will always talk about anytime I talk about anything, and that's when I start working with the human body, I start talking about there's two things we want to keep in mind. Number one is we have certain ways that we move biomechanically, and work that we do as trainers and as athletes, it's great. But one thing I like everybody to keep in mind is you don't have a biomechanical movement without the brain. So I like to think of things in a neurobiomechanical set, because the brain is really what's going to control everything. And so when you start thinking about doing athletics, you have to remember one thing. The human body has one priority. The top priority is survival. And the human body is always going to pick survival over performance. So if you're in a situation and your body is not comfortable and it's in a threat and you're trying to improve in some area, but your body is struggling just to keep you upright and not broken, your performance is not going to improve, or it's not going to improve it significantly, and it's not going to be long term. Also, you're increasing risk. So what I try to do is tell people, number one is, if you want to generate power, so today we're going to talk about power. And really all it is knowing the definition would be strength plus time. So if you've got two guys and they both can squat 300 pounds, but one guy, it takes him 2 seconds to squat it. The next guy squats it in 1.5 seconds. The second guy on that exercise is displaying more power. Obviously, power is closely related to speed. So it's applying strength in a short amount of time. And so in order to do that, your body can't be afraid. And if you're dealing with survival issues, you're not going to be as athletic. So what do I mean by survival issues? There's 3 ways that the human body gets information, and it gets it through the visual system. It gets it through what we call a vestibular system. That's our balance. And then there's something called proprioception, which is our nerves and certain sensors that are in various parts of our body. Most training is training the proprioception system, which is about 10% of the information that we're bringing in. So what that means is there's about 85 to 90% of things still being left untrained. Now, they're not completely untrained. You're doing brain training no matter what. It's just that you don't know it. So if you specifically do it, then you can get more out of it. And so I'll explain what I mean real quick. So input is information coming in through our eyes, through our ears, and through, I just talked about our system of proprioception. That's input that comes into the brain. The brain then interprets what came in. And then based on whatever it interprets, we get output. So if I see the basket is 10 feet away and I need to shoot at that basket, but if my visual system is a little bit off and it's actually showing me 9.5 feet away, or it's showing me 10.5 feet away, odds are I'm going to be off a little bit. Okay? If I'm doing jumps and my vestibular system, my balance is a little bit off, I'm going to be a little bit afraid to jump as high as I can. My body is going to restrict me from expressing full amount of power. So the reason these things are important is the first thing to know is if you want to get on a really good program, is the first thing you want to do is do a very good assessment of your visual system, of your vestibular system, your balance, and of your proprioceptive systems. You want to be able to, it's not necessarily a hard thing to do, but it's important to do it. So there's this saying that says, if you're not assessing, you're guessing. And sometimes you're okay. But odds are most of us have things that we can work on so that we can get more results out of our training. So the main thing that I want to stress again is the body will always pick survival over performance. So if you've got an ankle that's bugging you, or you've got any kind of thing that's bugging you, you want to really try and work on that before trying to really improve performance. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to feel 100% every time you go out there to play basketball. Obviously, that's not the case. But what you do want to know is that you want to be very efficient in your training, and you want to train smart. You want to train hard, yes, but training smart is even more critical. The thing that I'm going to talk about with power generation, one way that basketball athletes really increase power generation is through plyometrics, plyos. So everybody wants to do them so that they can jump higher. And I'll just talk about traditional plyos for a minute. What I generally see are people on jump programs, and the amount of times that they're jumping is, in my estimation, way too many jumps. Also, the rest is way too short. Because remember, we're trying to create force. We want to become very strong and to be very, very, very present in your training. And in your mind, if you want to learn how to create a lot of force, you've mentally got to create a lot of force in your training. So I'm going to say, as an example, two-legged jumps, like a box jump. If your rest periods are very short and you're doing 100, sets of 10, sets of 15 box jumps, what you're really doing is submaximal work. You're doing cardio, okay? Cardio is great, but if your goal is to become more explosive, then you have to really focus on becoming more explosive. So what does that mean? That means that for each jump, you have to be all the way in 90, 95, 100%. If you're doing 20 jumps in a row, that's not possible. If you're doing jumps with a short 1 minute rest, that's not possible. What you need to know is you can get in very few jumps at the type of intensity that's going to force your body to say, you know what? This dude or this young lady is really trying to improve, because your body will get better at what it does consistently. So I've seen jump sessions with 40, 50, 60, 70, 100 jumps per session, and done it 2 or 3 times a week. I would say a better number of really maximal jumps would be about 50, and that's not in a session, that's in a week, you guys. Somewhere between 40 and 60 jumps in a week, period. That's when you're in a power building phase and you're actually trying to increase your vertical or your ability to move with intent, with what we call explosive strength. So knowing that, it kind of gives you a different paradigm to look at, because now you're thinking, I got to work hard, but I got to get in and I got to get out. Part of it also is the rest between a rep it can't be a minute or 2 minutes. It's got to be a long rest so that you are able to create that crazy force again. And so it's literally full recovery. Whether you're doing 2 or 3 jumps, your mind has got to go out and sell out for each jump. You got to go and get it. And the reason that it works is it loads you, that type of stress that you load with forces your brain to organize. Your nervous system has to organize in a certain way to be able to tolerate that kind of force. If I'm doing a bunch of jumps and it's not that critical, my body can organize a little haphazardly. It knows I'm going to be okay. I can do this all day. I'm not under as big a threat. When I'm creating a ton of force, the threat's big. So the attention that the brain has to give is super organized, super focused, and it's going to allow you to actually create a more forceful rep. We don't have a lot of those in us. We've only got a few of them in us. If we had a lot of them, we'd break down. So part of being able to use that type of, when we talk about a plyo program, is just to know it has to be intense, it has to be sparse, and it has to have a big recovery. Because that is almost, the best way I can describe it is, if I turn on the stove and then I turn the stove off, an hour later it may still be a little warm. I could probably touch it a bunch of times. I probably could hold my hand on there a little bit. Probably wouldn't be too bad. If the fire was just turned off and I touch it, it's going to be intense. I'm going to remember that experience more than the 10 or 20 or 30 sub-maximal experiences that I had. So the ability to create that crazy force is what implants it into your brain and what implants it into your system to improve. So when we start talking about really getting intense jumps and an intense result, there's a lot of guys, a lot of people are doing jump training, getting, either no results or minor results. All right. Now, after having said all that, not everyone is ready for that. And not everyone is going to benefit from that. But there is something that everyone can benefit from, and that's using other sub-maximal jumps in a very smart way. And I talk about survival over performance. So if your body does not trust its ability to land and to absorb force and then reutilize that force, it's not going to let you jump very high. So for our younger athletes, what is critical is really learning how to create, how to learn how to land and decelerate in all sorts of positions. All sorts of positions. And one way I can describe this is I had 2 guys that come in, both top level athletes. I gave them both vertical jump tests, how high can the guy jump? They both were at about 29-inch verticals, which is decent. It's not earth-shattering, but it's pretty good. One guy, fairly athletic. The other one, stupid athletic. The difference is his body could create force from so many different positions, not just from 2 legs and up, not just from right leg forward, left leg forward. So he could get you from almost anywhere. And that ability is what you want to transfer onto a court. So there are guys in the NBA that we don't consider athletic guys with 40-inch and 41-inch vertical jumps, but you don't know it because they got to get to a sweet spot. And anything that's not that sweet spot, you know, they're just a regular guy. Then there are dudes and ladies who have a multitude of sweet spots. It doesn't matter. That is more indicative of what athleticism is, the ability to do what you need from wherever you need to do it. And one way, I'll make this fairly brief, I'll kind of tell you this, is one way that to build that type of athleticism is to start creating eccentric meaning landing motions in various positions. 2 feet, 1 foot in front, the other leg behind, foot turned in, foot turned out, head in different positions, because this is what really happens in basketball. Rarely are we nice and perfectly and jump and land and looking straight ahead. If I'm looking right and I've got to land on my left foot and my brain don't know where my left foot is, it ain't gonna let me get up there. So what everyone can do, everyone can't jump everyone can't have a 40-inch vertical, but almost the skill of being able to jump off of any foot safely at any time is a skill that almost anyone can learn. You just have to know it's a thing. And once you know it's a thing, then you can put together a program, or talk to me about putting together a program to do that. Not that hard to do, but it has to be done progressively. So when I talk about athletic and force absorption and force reutilization, what I really talk about is cutting down the threat, putting the body in performance mode and teaching your body how to work from various positions, various angles without fear. And without fear, that means you can go to work right away. Look at dancers, look at parkour athletes. These are guys and ladies who don't do anything sport related, but just looking at them, they're able to jump from all sorts of positions, no fear. Fear is what keeps you from getting up there, but there's no fear because the training's different. The training's from all different positions. Now, I'm not saying if you play basketball, you should train like a dancer, but what I am saying is that you should be able to absorb and reutilize force from all sorts of different angles and positions, head positions, feet positions, with the ability to control your knees and your joints from all sorts of different positions. This is trainable skill. It's trainable. This skill is very trainable. And then whatever you do with that intense max jumping that we talked about earlier, that only enhances. You got both. You can go and just explode, but you can also go pop and just have all sorts of different moves and angles at your disposal. So for me, the ability to have all those different things at your disposal is what athleticism is. That part is definitely trainable. That part is also very trainable when you're young, because your brain is wide open to grab this kind of stuff. It's for all of us, but it's really, really, really when you're elastic and you don't have a set thought, I got to train this way, I've got to train this way, then you have the ability to pick up those type of movements, you guys and ladies. Yeah, that's kind of it.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you talked about getting put on a program, and say you go on a program in the off season and you see like a lot of improvement. So how would you suggest that you would maintain the explosion you gained in the off season during the season?
Well, one thing to remember is you're not going to be the same levels at all times throughout the whole year. It's not possible. But when you're in season, one thing that you do want to remember is you have to work a little bit differently. And it depends on if a high school or college, it depends on your schedule. It depends on your practice schedule. What you really have to do is make sure that when we talk about managing threat, if your practices, if you have an energy number of 10 and your life and your practices are taking you all the way up to 10, extra work, not necessary. It's not necessary, even though, like we say, there's a lot to be said for hard work, but only to the level that you can recover. Recovery is gonna be much more important than anything else. So there's just, you can build a very good base during the off season, but the fact that you're playing, you're jumping, you're actually doing maximal jumps in games. It's almost built in that, you know, I talked about 40 to 50 jumps in a week. In a game, you're doing some maximal jumps, you're doing a lot of sub-maximal jumps. You really don't have to do that much to maintain what you already have. You just have to know that you have to take care of yourself and you have to recover. Right. And you also got to know that if you're a 10, you're not going to be a 10 all year round. You may have to be at 8.5 and a 9 sometimes, but 8.5 and 9 is generally good enough to get it done.
Great. So Kayla had a question, which is actually maybe a combination of several responses, but the question was really about mindset and how to use athletic activities as a inspiration or motivation to kids doing better in the classroom.
Well, one thing about athletics, and this is it can be, so what kids like are victories. And I'm not necessarily meaning winning games, but goals that are attainable. And whether it's just, you know, whether it's making jump shots with, maybe it's making shots with the left and the right hand, just victories, things that are attainable, carrots that are put out there that they can actually reach, can be very good for confidence. And so in my mind, and with what a lot of the kids that I work with, it's just knowing that you want them to be able to achieve something, and also to have fun doing it. Because one thing about the classroom is, I'll go off it a little bit here. We learn to think as humans, really not by sitting down. We learn to think by problem solving. Problem solving while moving. If I jump over this lake, if I go over here, is that thing, can I grab that thing and can I eat it? But if I want to go and grab that egg, is that big cat over there going to get me? Maybe if I grab this stick and I'm able to fend it off. So a lot of how our brains work is not being seated and not moving. It's while problem solving how to do things in motion. We work best that way. That's what it's for. So athletics actually lets you express your brain the way that it works best while moving, and not seated, and not just sit straight, don't move, you know. That as little of that as you can do is the best. So get out there, figure out how to do this puzzle, human puzzle. Do some juggling, do some moving, but make sure whatever problems you're trying to figure out, sometimes you want to insert yourself into the problem and make it physical. So that's how I would say for classroom work, definitely for sure could help.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So if you ever get a chance, I'll tell you this right now, there's a, look up a book, and this is just one thing, I'll just throw one book out there. Grab a book called The Brain Gym.
The Brain Gym?
The Brain Gym, yeah. I can't call the name. Maybe Carla Hannaford is who wrote it. So just check out the Brain Gym.
Okay.
And I'm not just saying that tells everything, but it leads you down the road of how people use play to merge both sides of the brain. We quite often, a lot of us are way dominant on one side of the brain than we all are on the other. All we want to do is try to balance the two out as much as possible. So check out the Brain Gym. That's a great place to start, I'd say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I have another question.
Okay.
If you wanted to get really good at a skill, for a basketball reference, like holding someone off before a catch to get open, like how specific do you need to train that? Like, can you work on?
I'm sorry, what was your question again? Learning how to do what?
Learning how to like hold somebody off before you catch the ball, like on the wing. So getting like strong in that specific position, like how specific of exercises do you need to do to improve on like specific skills like that?
So almost anything, there's something called the SAID principle, which means specific adaptation to imposed demands. What does that mean? That means that you'll get better at what you do. All right. So the way that I would suggest, number one, is to reverse engineer what it is you want to do. All right. So what does it ask for? You tell me right now. What does it ask for? Give me a body position. Tell me what it asks for.
You have to be in like an athletic position. You have to arm bar somebody. So you have to use your side core, and then you have to push off. So it's like a combination of like isometric holding, like explosive power, and maybe like you want to work on throwing them off with like your eyes or something, like your head.
Okay.
Like give them a head fake.
You just basically said that you're going to use your side. You're going to use what's called your side chain. And how do you build your side chain? You can use side planks. You can put a band around and resist it. More importantly, we just talked about plyometrics, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Your step is a plyometric step. When you want to push out, those are plyos. Everything hops, jumps, all of that is plyometric. And once again, we talk about just getting there with two legs and jumping and getting on this and jumping in a certain way, but you look at how you want to push. Where's your head position? Remember I talked about head position. When you're set, where's your head position going to be? And what is the plyo jump that you have to work on? From what it sounds like, it's a force to backwards. No one actually plyo jumps like that. One thing that I notice is guys are way more athletic quite often on offense than they are on defense. They create really good angles on offense, and then you watch them on defense and you go, is that the same guy? And so when we talk about mindset, a lot of it is strength. Here, the ability to overcome, knowing what it is you want to do and putting that intent into it. So much more of it is intent inside the head. Like I just talked about increasing jumps. A lot of it is being so present and so committed for a short amount of reps. So what you want to think about, what is this position? And I need to sell out for a few powerful reps in my training if it's really this important. If it's that important, you have to put your hand on that hot flame and not put it on a warm flame 100 times. Put it on that hot flame, get it, make it game-like. You can't do too many, and you do it with that much purpose and that much intensity, and then you move on. But the great thing is you can everything on this planet is a skill, everything. So you can look at it and just reverse engineer what it takes. And once again, use those pieces, use the pieces, even if you have to do one piece at a time, own that piece. What is the next piece? Own that piece. If it's that important, then if it's something that you need to be better at that much, then it'll take that much importance. And so you'll work at it with that much intent in your brain. Not a bunch of them, but really, really to get good at it.
So I got a question. So with concussions and what you talked about, the brain taking information, we both know of a player who has had several concussions, and
Right.
and when we see them go on the floor, they're still searching, as you said, they're trying to access information, and they're always their eyes and their head seem always out of position. Particularly on defense, they seem to be sort of searching.
Yeah. I'll talk about concussions really quick. So remember, I talked about input, interpretation, and output. When you have been concussed, it is a traumatic event. So if I get hit with a baseball in the side of the head, on my left side of the head, my brain will say, that ain't a place where you want to go. It associates that with trauma. So it associates even looking in that direction with low survival rates. Right. So what your brain will do, it will figure out how to get you to move without using that space, that area, okay? So if you're not using, if you can't look left to move left, then number one, you cannot move quickly left. Because if I said close your eyes and run real fast, you're not going to do it because you can't see where you're going, because survival kicks in. Now, if I say I'm going to take away half your vision, yeah, you can run better than if your eyes were closed, but you're still not going to be able to run very fast. And if your body says this fool is still trying to do this, what it will do is it will give you pain or something to stop you. Your body will force you to stop because, once again, survival rules over performance. So in a case like that, when you get a concussion, generally what happens is they'll tell you to rest. When you're not throwing up anymore, your head aches, blah, blah. Over time, they'll give you some light little tests, and they'll say, oh, yeah, you're better. Go back to play. It is indicative. It is completely important to do rehabilitation after concussion, whether it's visual rehabilitation, but you have to. There are people that have had multiple concussions, so they have visual spots and they have pain spots that their body's dealing with. Yet, once again, you're not going to be fast, and you're probably going to wonder, why do I keep getting injured when I'm stretching, I'm doing all my strength work, I'm doing my biomechanical work, but what you have not addressed is the brain work. You're getting flawed information. So when you go to process, you can't process the right thing because the information ain't right. So the movement, it's not going to clean up. It has to be rehab. And the closer to the injury is the less rehab that it needs. If it's 2 or 3 years out, then you've got some work to do to break that pattern. You've got to break that pattern and make it a strength and not a weakness. Your body is great at compensating. The better the athlete, the better the compensator they are. But compensation comes at a cost. And you know, if I got 3 full tires on my car and 1 tire is a little bit low, sure, I can drive fast, but at some point my alignment is going to be off, and at some point I'm not going to be able to drive that car as far as if I had kept all of those tires fully inflated. Compensation is great because as humans, we're going to keep moving. But the cleaner your movement and the better your information coming in is the better you're going to be.
Okay, we have a participant who said that this is a great point, that they've seen a doctor for a while after getting hit. So they said the point is definitely on point.
Yeah. I'll follow up on that too. I would say it's great to see a doctor, and I mean I don't know, but you also may want to think about something called a sports ophthalmologist, sports vision, or visual rehab. Okay, I'll use an optometrist as an example. Optometrists are great at finding disease and at eyesight.
Mm-hmm.
But what they're not good at is improving vision. The difference between eyesight and vision, eyesight is, okay, I can see those words, I can read really well, I can pass a DMV test. But your vision, when you're playing sports, baby, it's a whole different ballgame. You got to track its speeds, you got to be all over the place, and you can't have slow reactions. You got to be able to see far, see close, look around, hold your head here, jump, and all of those kind of things. So those might even call for a little bit of what I call visual rehab. Not a lot of people do it, but you can find it.
Right. So another question that came up is, or the question, is there a specific, if you can give us one drill to do for the brain and eyes, what would that be tonight?
If I could give one drill for the eyes.
Mm-hmm. Well, for the brain.
For the brain, well, I mean, everything's a brain drill. So I'll give a couple.
Okay.
So I'll demo one real quick here. Let me grab something. So one thing that the eyes do is they work as a team, or they're supposed to. So the better your eyes work as a team, the clearer your information is. If one of your eyes says, that dude ain't on board, I'm gonna do most of the work, then your information isn't gonna be clear. And by the way, the eye that ain't doing work, it's only gonna get worse because it ain't exercising. The thing to remember, just like any other body part, your eyes have muscles. They're called extraocular muscles. They move your eyes the way that they want to move. So the exercise that I would suggest is called a pencil push-up. Basically, you take a pencil and you put it at arm's length and you slowly move it towards your eyes. You stare at it, and as long as it stays clear, you keep moving towards your nose. When it becomes blurry and or double, when you start seeing two, stop, reset, and start bringing it again. Now, what this does is, as this pencil is moving and gets closer, your eyes must converge as a team to see it. If one is converging and it's on it and the other one's lagging behind, you're gonna see double. So this exercise, just like a regular push-up, by doing nice, slow, non-threatening reps, you improve your eyes' ability to work together. That's a simple one that almost anybody can do. And I can tell you, like even a couple weeks of doing that, sports vision-wise, it makes a big difference. That would be one. The second thing I would say is, almost all of us, me included, we're staring and we're doing these Zoom calls. We're staring at these phones, these computers. And so whatever you really do, remember I called something called the SAID principle earlier, specific adaptation to imposed demands. You get better at what you do a lot of. If you're staring at a screen hours a day, that range, that distance where you're staring at that screen, your eyes become very strong at that distance because you're training it constantly at that distance. If you're an athlete and a basketball player, do you want your eyes just strong at this little distance right here? Or do you need them things firing down court, sideways, to the basket, to the floor? No. You need your eyes to be strong in all sorts of ranges. So what you want to do is you definitely want to get off the computer, do a little bit of eye massage. One thing I'll do is I'll stand on the street and I'll just watch cars go by. I'll try and track them with my eyes, sometimes without moving my head, sometimes with moving my head. Or I'll go to a park and I'll hear a bird and I'll try and, in my mind, guess where he's at. Are my ears and my eyes, am I on the same track? Can I really, are my senses that good? Then I look, oh damn, I'm off. Okay, let me just work on sounds and knowing, can I interpret where they are? This is how you improve input. These are things that you can do that are kind of fun, but you definitely don't want to just strengthen your eyes. It would be like doing curls here. And then you go to do a pull-up, all this is weak. You can't do a dang pull-up until you get to this position. You don't want to just juice a muscle and strengthen a muscle in one range. Eyes are the same way. Get them far, get them close. You play basketball, 15 feet, 20 feet. What do you call it? Peripheral awareness. You do some of that. Follow your finger to the side. Oh, there it is right there. Slow, fast. You just want to really use your eyes liberally in all sorts of ways, and you don't want to get it stuck to where it just gets used to one thing. Right now, it's something we all do. And so if you're an athlete, you got to realize, I can't become so dominant. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to use your computer and you're not going to use your phone. What I am saying is get out, get in natural sunlight, and just look at all distances. Play around with it. Short, far, close. Look, head turns, head don't turn, sideways, anything like that will help you keep your sports vision intact.
Great. So Eric, can you say that again, the SAID principle, the specific?
Oh, so the SAID principle, it's S, specific, A, adaptation, I, that's imposed, and D is demands. Specific, adaptation to impose demands. What that means is the human brain and the human body get good at what you focus on. If you focus on being really good at looking 6 inches past your nose, don't expect your jumper to stay wet. It ain't. If you gotta actually do some stuff and keep it flexible. You want flexibility. We want flexibility in pretty much all things, but you definitely want visual flexibility for sure.
Great. So Eric, thanks a lot. Anybody has any final questions or thoughts? Middlebrooks, you got anything?
No, it's good information. Very interesting concepts.
Great. So this will be available